All right, so the last piece that we want to do in this sequence is touch the cranium. And we won't do a whole cranial class. We're just doing the very basics of what's needed in order to make the body receptive and make the brain receptive to the work that we're going to be doing after this. So we're going to roll the head onto our hand with our fingers slightly curled underneath the occipital ridge. And then we're just going to let the head rest on our hands. And then we're going to check whether there's tension right at the edge between the occiput and the neck. Any tension there for you, ma'am?
No.
Great. So then the next thing we're going to just check is are the two sides of the occiput either, I'm going to take my hands off for a second, is one shifted superior or inferior, or is one shifted to the side or the other side, and also are they moving like this? So we're going to just check those things underneath the head, and of course you won't see a thing as I'm doing this, but I will explain to you what I'm feeling. So I'm going to just tune into what's going on here. And at the moment, it actually feels pretty balanced. I'm going to say if I were to be nitpicky, there's just a tinsy of superior on the left, but it's minute. So I'm just going to exaggerate that like you would exaggerate anything else when you're doing phase 4. We're just staying in straight, basic, follow the pattern and exaggerate it. And I'm just exaggerating that ever so slightly. Wait for the rebound. Sometimes you'll feel a little teeter-totter of it going up and down one side and the other as they're balancing with each other. And now it's settling in the middle. Now, some of the time that happens right away, and some of the time you won't get it right away. But because we're just trying to get the body and the head ready for the brain work, we're not going to spend hours on this. We're just going to do our best to just say, hey, I'm here. So now I'm going to check whether there's any kind of rotational preference. And that feels pretty balanced. And then I'm going to go into feeling that little opening wave motion that I showed earlier on above Anne's head. Are the left and the right side of the occiput flaring out and coming back together in a slight kind of inhalation-exhalation movement. And they're doing that quite nicely. And you're basically supporting and following what's going on, exaggerating if you're finding an imbalance. And many times you'll find yourself breathing more openly when the release has happened. Once the occiput is settled, we're going to come and wrap our hands around the head and just notice, is there anything happening right now in terms of the cranium, the whole cranium going one direction or the other? And so I'm going to slightly go towards the right and slightly go towards the left and notice whether or not there's any preference. And I'm feeling a slight preference towards the right. So I'm going to exaggerate that just a little. And again, it's going to be so small that you can barely see it. but the person on the table usually will feel it. And now it's coming back. Sometimes it'll again be like a teeter-totter of going like this, and sometimes it'll just right itself. And then you can gently run your fingers over the sutures and notice whether there's any place where there's a step between the different parts, between the different cranial plates. And again, because we're not doing a whole session on the cranium, we're not going to go into all the details. We're going to just gently check whether there's anything that feels like there's something out of whack somewhere. And I'm just drawing in a little bit around the temporals here. Touching the sphenoid. Yeah, there we go. And so I don't even know when I said there we go, except my system just released. My breath opened and my fingers are no longer drawn into the xiphoid area. And many times what I notice is when enough of the cranium is done, it's almost like my hands get pushed away from the head. And that's a great moment to just take a little break, allow your hands to move away from the person's head. And to allow the energies between the practitioner and the client to differentiate. And then gently allowing the hands to point towards the floor.